They told me to choose a wife. I pointed randomly, and she was an alien princess. Aaron was a young man in his late 20s, living in a small village surrounded by rolling fields and narrow, dusty lanes. The village was the kind where everyone knew everyone else, and news traveled faster than the wind through the trees. Life here was simple but predictable, and that predictability sometimes felt like a cage to Aaron. He worked at a small local shop, helping his father with the accounts and the day-to-day errands. Every morning, he would wake up to the crowing of roosters and the faint smell of wet soil after the night's dew. He liked the quiet, but deep down, he knew there was a world beyond the village, full of places and ideas he had never seen. For Aaron, life had always been orderly, almost too orderly. His days were filled with chores, conversations with neighbors, and evenings sitting under the big banyan tree, listening to stories from elders who remembered everything about the village's history. But despite this comfort, he often felt restless, like a bird trapped in a cage that was too small for its wings. He would dream of traveling, of meeting new people, of discovering things he had never even imagined. Yet he never acted on these dreams, mostly because life was predictable, and stepping out of the routine was something that frightened him more than it excited him. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant hills, Aaron's life took an unexpected turn. His family gathered in the main room of their modest house, the air heavy with the smell of cooking spices and the faint scent of incense. His mother sat on a woven mat, fanning herself gently, while his father, a stern man with kind eyes, cleared his throat. The family's elders had arrived, and the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Aaron sensed that something important was about to happen, something that would change his life forever, even though he had no idea how. "Aaron," his father began, his voice firm but not unkind, "it is time for you to choose a bride. You are a grown man now, and it is the family's wish that you marry soon. We have found suitable families, and it is up to you to make a choice." He had never imagined himself standing in front of such a responsibility. The thought of meeting several girls, all of whom his family expected him to assess carefully, felt overwhelming. More than that, he didn't even know what he wanted. Love, companionship, or simply someone who could follow the family rules. The questions swirled in his mind, making his head feel dizzy. The elders, noticing his hesitation, exchanged knowing looks. They believed that marriage was not just about the union of two people, but also about tradition, honor, and family reputation. They presented a list of girls from respectable families, each described with careful attention to her background, her education, and her qualities. Aaron scanned the list quickly. Some names he recognized, others he did not. There were notes about family status, skills, and virtues, written as if selecting a bride were choosing seeds to plant in the soil. Each detail seemed more overwhelming than the last, and Aaron's anxiety grew. He rubbed his temples and let out a long sigh. His mind was spinning. "I don't know how to choose," he admitted quietly, almost to himself. The room fell silent for a moment. His parents looked at him with patience, waiting for him to respond. Aaron's mother reached over and took his hand, her touch soft and reassuring. "Son," she said gently, "we trust you, just pick someone, the rest will follow naturally." None of the girls seemed familiar to him, and none of the descriptions sparked any sense of connection. He realized that he was expected to make a choice, yet he felt completely unprepared to do so. A strange sense of absurdity washed over him. The idea of choosing his life partner from a list without having met them seemed almost comical. He wondered if it would be acceptable to just leave the choice to fate, to chance, and let life decide for him. Then, on a sudden impulse, Aaron did something he would never forget. He closed his eyes and held out his finger. Without thinking, he pointed at a name on the list. It was a simple, random act, done without reason or thought, yet at that moment it felt like the only way to escape the pressure crushing him. When he opened his eyes, the name he had chosen stared back at him, Maya. The elders exchanged glances, nodding quietly. "Very well," Aaron's father said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of finality. "Maya it is. We will arrange for the families to meet. You will see her soon." That night he lay awake on his cot, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the randomness of life and how a single, impulsive choice could set the course of one's entire future. He wondered what kind of person Maya was, what she thought about life, and how she would respond to someone like him, who had chosen her without thought. Days passed, and the arrangements for the meeting were made. Aaron tried to prepare himself, reading about manners, thinking of topics for conversation, and trying to imagine what kind of person Maya might be. Despite his efforts, he felt a mixture of excitement and dread. He could not shake the feeling that he was stepping into the unknown, and the thought thrilled and terrified him at the same time. His friends in the village noticed his distracted mood, teasing him gently, asking if he was finally going to meet his bride. Aaron laughed along, but inside, he felt a strange anticipation, as if his life were about to turn a page he could not yet see. When the day of the meeting arrived, Aaron's heart raced. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows across the village lanes. He dressed carefully, wearing the clothes his mother had prepared, and tried to calm his nerves. His father accompanied him to Maya's house, a modest home not far from the village center. As they walked, Aaron's thoughts wandered. What if she didn't like him? What if they had nothing in common? What if his random choice had been a mistake that could not be undone? The moment he saw Maya for the first time, Aaron felt a jolt of surprise. She was sitting in the courtyard, reading a book, her hair tied neatly, her posture calm and composed. There was something about her that was immediately different. It was not just her appearance, which was graceful and attractive, but the way she held herself, the quiet confidence, and the intelligence in her eyes. Aaron felt a strange sense of recognition, as if he had stumbled upon someone extraordinary, someone who belonged to a world far beyond the ordinary life of the village. Maya looked up from her book and smiled politely. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but carried a clarity that made Aaron listen intently. They exchanged greetings, and Aaron felt a nervous flutter in his chest. Conversation followed, tentative at first, with polite questions about family, work, and daily life. But soon the discussion took unexpected turns. Maya spoke about books she had read from distant lands, places she had visited, and ideas she found fascinating. Aaron found himself captivated, struggling to keep up with her knowledge and the ease with which she expressed herself. He realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that Maya was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her presence challenged everything he thought he knew about the world, about women, and about life itself. She laughed at his nervous jokes, asked thoughtful questions, and shared her opinions freely. Aaron felt both intimidated and exhilarated, unsure whether he was ready for someone so different, yet unable to look away. As the meeting ended, Aaron's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The randomness of his choice now seemed almost fateful. He had pointed at a name without thought, yet that choice had brought him face to face with someone extraordinary, someone who could change the way he saw the world. On the walk back home, he replayed the conversation in his mind, remembering every detail, every word, every glance. He knew that life, in its mysterious way, had thrown him into an adventure he could not have predicted, and the excitement of the unknown filled him with a strange, nervous energy. That night, as he lay in bed, Aaron could not sleep. He thought about Maya, about the way she had spoken, about the calm confidence that seemed almost otherworldly. He realized that his life was no longer the predictable routine he had known. A single, impulsive decision had opened a door to a world full of possibilities, and Aaron felt both terrified and thrilled. For the first time, he understood that life could be unpredictable, that fate could be playful, and that sometimes the most important choices were made not with careful thought, but with courage, randomness, and a little bit of luck. The morning of Aaron's second visit to Maya's house arrived quietly. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Birds sang in the fields, and the faint smell of fresh bread and spices drifted through the village lanes. Aaron's heart thumped with nervous anticipation as he got ready. Today, he was to spend more time with Maya, to talk and understand her beyond the brief exchange they had shared during their first meeting. Yet despite his preparations, he could not shake the feeling that this meeting would be different. Something inside him told him that he was about to discover more than he expected. When Aaron reached Maya's home, he noticed that she was already outside, sitting near a small flower garden that her family tended carefully. She had a book in her hand, just as she had during their first meeting, but this time she looked up with a bright smile the moment she saw him. Aaron felt a strange flutter in his chest, a mix of excitement and nervousness that he could not control. "Good morning, Aaron," Maya said softly, her voice calm and warm. "I hope you slept well." The garden around them was simple but charming, with marigolds, jasmine, and sunflowers swaying lightly in the morning breeze. Aaron took a seat, trying to appear composed, but inside his mind raced. He had spent hours thinking about this day, trying to imagine what he would say, how he would behave, and what he might learn about her. The conversation began cautiously, with questions about family, hobbies, and village life. Aaron noticed that Maya listened carefully, responding thoughtfully to each question, but her answers were never simple or predictable. She had a way of speaking that made ordinary topics feel fascinating. When Aaron asked about her favorite hobbies, she smiled and said, "I enjoy reading, learning about stars, and exploring new ideas. I like understanding things that others often overlook." He tried to keep up, asking questions about the stars and the places she mentioned, but he quickly realized how little he knew about the subjects she was so passionate about. Each answer she gave sparked a new curiosity inside him, and he found himself wanting to know more, to explore the ideas she talked about. As they continued talking, Aaron noticed other things about Maya that were unusual. She had a calm confidence that made him feel both at ease and slightly intimidated. Her gestures were precise, and her eyes seemed to see everything, as if she understood more about the world than anyone else he had met. She laughed easily, but her laughter was not forced or playful in a typical way. It was quiet, thoughtful, and full of warmth. Aaron felt drawn to her, even though he barely knew her and he couldn't explain why. Maya, sensing his curiosity, leaned forward slightly and asked, "Aaron, do you ever feel that life has more to offer than what we see around us? That there are mysteries waiting to be discovered?" He thought about the fields, the quiet streets, and the routine of his days, and realized that she was right. There was more to life than what he had experienced, more than the boundaries of the village and the rules of tradition. "Yes," he admitted slowly. "Sometimes I wonder what is beyond all of this, but I have never known how to find it." It is not always easy to find, but sometimes the path begins with a single choice. Even a random choice can lead to unexpected journeys. Her words made Aaron's heart skip a beat. He thought about the moment he had pointed at her name on the list, a random act that now seemed far from ordinary. Could it really be the start of a journey he could not yet understand? As the morning passed, Aaron learned more about Maya's unusual background. She had traveled to several cities for her studies, learned foreign languages, and read books from distant lands. She spoke about science, art, and culture with a depth that surprised him. Everything about her felt advanced, almost as if she had experienced a world far beyond the village. Aaron felt a mix of awe and unease. He was fascinated by her knowledge, but at the same time he worried about fitting into her world. Could someone like him, raised in a small village with simple routines, connect with someone so extraordinary? Despite these worries, Aaron felt a growing admiration for Maya. She was not just different in knowledge, but also in character. She was kind, patient, and unassuming. She never boasted about her accomplishments, yet she spoke with a quiet authority that made her presence undeniable. Aaron found himself listening more than speaking, absorbing every word, every detail, every subtle gesture. The way she tilted her head while thinking, the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about something she loved, the calmness in her movements, all of it fascinated him. At one point, Maya stood and walked toward a small telescope set up near the garden. "Do you want to see the stars?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement. Aaron nodded, feeling a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. He had never used a telescope before, but Maya guided him patiently, explaining how to adjust it and what to look for. As he peered through the lens, Aaron's eyes widened. He could see the moon's craters, the rings of distant planets, and clusters of stars that seemed to stretch endlessly across the sky. "It's beautiful," he whispered, almost in awe. Maya nodded, smiling. "It is, and it reminds us that the world is much bigger than our small routines. There is so much to learn, so much to see." The stars, which he had always seen as distant and unreachable, suddenly seemed close, almost personal. And beside him, Maya's presence amplified the feeling, as if she belonged to that vast, mysterious universe as naturally as she belonged to the village. He realized that she was not just extraordinary in knowledge or appearance, but in the way she connected with the world around her, bringing everything into sharper focus. The hours passed quickly, and Aaron found himself completely absorbed in Maya's world. He laughed more than he had in months, asked questions he had never considered, and shared small pieces of his life with her. She listened carefully, never judging, always encouraging him to speak, to explore his thoughts. Aaron felt a bond forming between them, a connection that went beyond the formalities of arranged marriage or social expectation. He sensed that Maya was not just someone to be married to, but someone who could expand his understanding of life, someone who could challenge him in ways he had never imagined. By the time the afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, Aaron realized that he had spent hours with Maya without noticing the passage of time. The garden, the flowers, the gentle breeze, and the sound of distant village life all faded into the background as he focused on her. When it was time to leave, he felt a strange reluctance, as if stepping away from her presence meant leaving behind a part of himself he had just discovered. Maya walked him to the edge of the courtyard and smiled. "I'm glad you came today, Aaron. It is rare to find someone who is willing to see the world differently, even for a little while." Something about Maya was unlike anything he had known before. She seemed almost otherworldly, yet completely real. The randomness of choosing her now felt purposeful, as if fate had guided him, not by chance but by design. That night, Aaron lay awake once again, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the hours he had spent with Maya. He realized that meeting her had opened a door to a new perspective, a world full of ideas and possibilities he had never considered. The stars he had seen through the telescope reminded him that life was vast, unpredictable, and beautiful. And at the center of this new world was Maya, extraordinary, intelligent, and kind, someone who had appeared in his life in the most unexpected way. Aaron knew one thing for certain: his life would never be the same again. The choice he had made randomly, almost jokingly, had brought him face to face with someone who could change everything. And though he did not yet understand the full impact of this choice, he felt ready to embrace the journey, whatever it might bring. After his second visit with Maya, Aaron's life began to feel different. It was not that the routines of the village changed. He still went to the shop every morning, helped his father with accounts, and walked through the same dusty lanes. But everything felt new, as if he was seeing life with fresh eyes. Thoughts of Maya occupied his mind constantly. He remembered the way she spoke about stars, the calm confidence in her voice, and the effortless way she made the world seem larger, more exciting, and full of possibilities. Aaron started noticing small things he had never paid attention to before. The morning dew on the leaves looked like tiny diamonds. The laughter of children playing in the street seemed more musical. Even the smell of freshly cooked food had a richer, comforting quality. He realized that Maya had opened his eyes to the beauty in the ordinary, the magic in the everyday, and he felt grateful for it. But along with admiration, a quiet unease crept in. Maya was so different from anyone he had known, and he often wondered if he could ever truly understand her, or if she would eventually find someone more suited to her extraordinary world. The next meeting was arranged at Maya's suggestion. She wanted to show Aaron some of the books and sketches she had collected from her travels and studies. When he arrived, she welcomed him with her usual calm smile. Her home, modest yet full of personality, was filled with bookshelves, notebooks, and little handmade objects that reflected her curiosity and intelligence. Aaron felt slightly overwhelmed, but also eager to learn. "Do you like reading?" Maya asked, noticing his glance toward the shelves. "I do a little," Aaron admitted. "But I have not had much time for it." Maya showed him drawings of constellations, maps of distant lands, and diagrams of unusual inventions. She explained each one with patience and enthusiasm, never rushing, never assuming he already knew the details. Aaron listened attentively, fascinated by how much knowledge she possessed, and how naturally she shared it without arrogance or pride. Each explanation brought him closer to her world, and he began to feel a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and even a little awe. At one point, Maya picked up a small notebook filled with her own sketches of the night sky. "I like to draw the stars as I see them," she said. "Sometimes they look different depending on the place or the time. It's like they have their own personality." And in that moment, he realized that she had a gift, not just knowledge, but the ability to make others see the world in a new light. As the day progressed, Aaron and Maya began talking about their dreams and aspirations. Aaron admitted hesitantly that he often felt trapped by the expectations of the village, by the routines that had governed his life for so long. Maya listened carefully, her eyes gentle, and when he finished, she said, "It is not wrong to feel that way, Aaron. Life is full of rules, but it is also full of possibilities. Sometimes the most important thing is to look beyond what is expected and find your own path." In his world, people often accepted tradition without question, and deviation was seen as risky or foolish. Yet here was someone who encouraged him to think, to question, and to dream. Aaron felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Fear of stepping outside the world he knew, but excitement at the thought of discovering a life that was truly his own. During a quiet pause in their conversation, Aaron noticed a small mark on Maya's wrist. It looked like a tiny constellation, etched delicately in blue ink. "Is that a tattoo?" he asked, curious. Maya glanced at it and smiled softly. "You could say that. It's a symbol of the stars I love. I got it to remind myself that there is always more to explore. even when life feels small or limited. He felt both fascinated and humbled, unsure how someone so extraordinary could exist in his ordinary world. As the afternoon turned into evening, Aaron noticed how naturally their conversation flowed. There was laughter, curiosity, and quiet moments of reflection. He found himself sharing thoughts he had never spoken aloud before, hopes, fears, and small secrets. Maya listened patiently, offering gentle encouragement, never judgment. Aaron realized that he trusted her more than anyone he had met, and he felt a growing sense of connection, even though he barely knew her. Maya, sensing his unease at times, would shift the conversation gently. "It's okay to feel uncertain, Aaron," she said. "We don't have to understand everything immediately. Sometimes, just being open to the experience is enough." It was a balance he had never experienced before, and it left him both intrigued and inspired. As the day drew to a close, Aaron walked home slowly, thinking about everything he had learned and experienced. He kept replaying the conversations in his mind, the stories, the sketches, the gentle laughter, and the star-shaped tattoo on Maya's wrist. He realized that she had opened a door for him, a door to a world larger than the village, larger than the expectations that had always guided his life. And although he did not yet understand where this path would lead, he felt ready to follow it, step by step, with curiosity and courage. Over the next few weeks, Aaron's visits to Maya became more frequent. Each meeting revealed new layers of her personality and interests. She shared books she had read, stories from her travels, and ideas that challenged Aaron to think in ways he had never considered. They spent hours discussing everything from the stars to simple life philosophies. Aaron began to notice that Maya had a way of seeing connections where he had never thought to look. She could relate simple events to larger patterns, teach lessons from small experiences, and find meaning in details others would have ignored. At the same time, Aaron felt his own confidence growing. Being around Maya encouraged him to ask questions, to explore his own thoughts, and to appreciate the world more deeply. He realized that she was not just extraordinary in knowledge, but extraordinary in her ability to inspire growth in others. For the first time, Aaron felt that life could be more than routine and expectation. It could be exciting, full of discovery, and shared with someone who truly understood him. Despite this growing closeness, Aaron also felt moments of doubt. He often wondered if he was truly worthy of Maya, if he could ever match her curiosity and intelligence, or if she would one day see him as ordinary and move on. But each time he shared his fears with her, she would respond with gentle reassurance. "You are not ordinary, Aaron," she said once, smiling. "Everyone has their own path. What matters is that you are willing to walk it and to learn along the way." And although he still felt the weight of tradition and expectation pressing down on him, he knew that whatever lay ahead, he wanted to face it with her by his side. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the sun set, Aaron turned to Maya and said quietly, "I feel like I've learned more in these weeks with you than I have in my entire life. And there is still so much more to learn, Aaron. Life is a journey, and the best journeys are shared." He did not yet understand all the ways she would influence him, but he was ready to embrace it. For the first time, he felt that his life was not just about following rules or meeting expectations. It was about discovery, growth, and connection. And with Maya, the unknown no longer felt frightening. It felt possible, meaningful, and full of wonder. Over the following weeks, Aaron's curiosity about Maya grew stronger with every visit. He had begun to realize that she was not only intelligent and knowledgeable, but also profoundly different from everyone he had ever met. She seemed to have a depth that went beyond books and stories, a sense of understanding about the world, people, and life itself that made Aaron both fascinated and slightly uneasy. He couldn't explain why, but sometimes being near her made him feel like he was seeing things he had never noticed before, as if her very presence cast a new light on the world. It was during one of these visits that Aaron began to notice subtle details that made Maya seem even more extraordinary. She had habits and interests that were unusual for someone from their village. She kept a careful journal of observations, notes about the stars, sketches of plants, and reflections on human behavior. She had read books that Aaron had never even heard of, about cultures, languages, and scientific ideas far beyond the scope of their small community. She spoke of places she had traveled to, cities full of buildings that seemed to touch the clouds, libraries with books stacked higher than one could reach, and people with knowledge so vast it was almost unimaginable. Aaron listened with awe, but also a small, persistent fear. Could he, a simple village man, ever belong in her world. He worried that she might one day grow tired of the simplicity of his life, that she would look for someone more like herself, someone who shared her curiosity, her knowledge, her experiences. But whenever he voiced his fears, even indirectly, Maya had a way of soothing him without dismissing his feelings. "You don't need to be like anyone else, Aaron," she once said, her eyes calm and steady. "Life is not about competing with others. It is about learning, growing, and seeing what is right in front of you. Everyone has a path, and every path is valuable." He wanted to learn, to grow, and to share in her world even if it seemed far beyond his reach. One evening, as the sun began to set, Aaron noticed Maya gazing at the horizon with a distant look in her eyes. Her expression was thoughtful, almost melancholy. "What are you thinking about?" he asked gently. Maya smiled faintly but did not immediately answer. After a pause, she said, "Sometimes I feel out of place, Aaron, not in a mean or unpleasant way, but as if the world I belong to is different from the one around me. I have seen things, learned things, and experienced things that are rare. And yet I find myself here in this village where life is simple and familiar. It is strange." Then he realized that he understood her feelings in a small way. "I think I understand," he said slowly. "Sometimes, even when life feels familiar, we notice things that are different, things that don't fit. Maybe that's why you feel different. But it does make connecting with people more complicated at times." He feared whether he could ever fully understand it, and he felt a growing responsibility to honor it, to respect her individuality, and to support her as she navigated a world that often seemed small compared to her inner life. As days turned into weeks, Aaron noticed more signs of Maya's extraordinary nature. She had a small telescope that she would set up every night to observe the stars. She could identify constellations with ease, explain their history, and even predict the movement of planets. She had an encyclopedic knowledge of the natural world, from plants and animals to meteorological patterns. She seemed to notice patterns and connections that Aaron would have missed entirely. But it wasn't just her knowledge that fascinated him. It was the way she approached life. She had a calm, thoughtful demeanor, and every action seemed deliberate and meaningful. She could spend hours observing a single flower, noting the way it grew, the direction of sunlight, and the insects it attracted. Aaron sometimes teased her gently, calling her too serious, but she always responded with patience and a quiet smile. "You notice things that most people ignore," he said one day. "I never realized how much there is to see." He began to see the village, his family, and even himself differently. The routines that had once seemed comforting now felt small, limited, and sometimes constraining. And yet, he also felt a sense of excitement, as if a new chapter of his life had begun, one full of possibility and adventure. One afternoon, Aaron's curiosity got the better of him. He asked Maya about her family, her background, and how she had come to live in the village. Maya hesitated for a moment, then began to speak carefully. "My family is a little different," she said. "We have traditions and knowledge that are not common here. We have traveled, studied, and learned in ways that most people would find unusual. That is why I sometimes feel apart from this place. I have also learned that it is rare to find someone who can accept that difference without judgment." He felt a deep sense of responsibility, not in a controlling way, but in a protective, supportive way, to be that person for her. Over time, Aaron began noticing small, almost imperceptible signs that reinforced the idea that Maya was extraordinary. She had a keen intuition about people, sensing their emotions, intentions, and moods with uncanny accuracy. She could remember details from conversations he had forgotten long ago. She often spoke of ideas and philosophies that seemed ahead of their time, challenging him to think differently about morality, life, and the universe. Aaron started sharing his own thoughts and ideas with her more openly, finding that she listened with genuine interest and offered perspectives that were both thoughtful and enlightening. He felt seen in a way he had never experienced before. For the first time, he realized that a relationship could be more than companionship or duty. It could be a partnership of minds and hearts, where learning, understanding, and growth were shared experiences. Yet, alongside admiration and curiosity, Aaron also felt fear. He worried that he might never fully comprehend her world, that she might one day grow tired of the simplicity of his life, or that she might seek someone whose experiences matched hers more closely. These thoughts sometimes kept him awake at night, but each time he confronted them, Maya's presence, words, and actions reminded him that connection was not about perfection, but about willingness, openness, and care. One evening, while they sat together watching the stars, Aaron turned to Maya and said quietly, "I sometimes feel like you are from a different world. Not in a bad way, but your way of seeing life is so different from mine. I don't know if I can ever keep up." "You do not have to keep up. You only have to be willing to explore with me." By now, Aaron understood that Maya's life was extraordinary in ways he could only begin to comprehend. She was knowledgeable, thoughtful, curious, and deeply kind. She had seen and experienced things that most people could only imagine, yet she remained humble, patient, and genuine. And she had chosen to share a part of herself with him, a simple village boy, out of trust, interest, and perhaps even a quiet hope that he could grow alongside her. For Aaron, this was both humbling and inspiring. He knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There would be moments of doubt, challenge, and uncertainty. But he also knew that with Maya, he had discovered a connection that transcended ordinary understanding, a bond built on curiosity, respect, and shared growth. And for the first time in his life, he felt ready to embrace the unknown, confident that together, they could navigate the extraordinary and the ordinary alike. Aaron's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. The days spent with Maya had opened his eyes to a world far bigger than the small village he had always known. Every conversation, every story, every star they observed together had expanded his understanding, challenged his assumptions, and filled him with a curiosity he never knew he had. But more than that, he had come to realize that his feelings for Maya were deeper than admiration. They were rooted in respect, trust, and a desire to share life's journey with her. Yet, even as he felt a growing closeness, Aaron knew that the challenges ahead were real. Maya's family, with its unusual traditions and extraordinary knowledge, often seemed like a world apart. The villagers, though polite and curious, sometimes whispered and speculated about her uniqueness. And Aaron himself, despite his growing confidence, sometimes doubted whether he could truly belong in a life that was so different from the one he had always known. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned shades of pink and gold, Aaron walked with Maya to the edge of the village, where a small hill overlooked the fields below. The air was crisp and calm, carrying the scent of earth and grass. Aaron carried a small blanket, and they sat together, watching the colors change in the sky. It had become their ritual to meet here, away from the eyes of the village, to talk, reflect, and share ideas. "Maya," Aaron began, hesitating slightly, "I've been thinking about everything. About your life, our world, and mine. I sometimes feel small, like I could never match you or understand all that you know. But at the same time, I feel that I want to try to be part of this journey with you, to see and learn as you do. That is what makes a partnership meaningful." They spent mornings observing the stars, afternoons walking through the village or nearby fields, and evenings sharing stories, ideas, and laughter. Aaron began to notice small ways in which Maya had changed him. He looked at life with more curiosity, noticed details he had previously ignored, and thought more deeply about his choices and actions. Even simple things, like the way sunlight reflected on the leaves or the sound of wind through the trees, felt more significant, more meaningful. Maya, too, seemed to respond to Aaron's presence in her own way. She had always been extraordinary, but she now appeared even more open, joyful, and grounded. Aaron realized that their connection was not just about learning from her, but about a mutual exchange. She, too, was enriched by his perspective, his kindness, and his willingness to explore new ideas. They laughed together, challenged each other's thoughts, and encouraged one another to see life more fully. However, the most important challenge for Aaron came when he began to consider the next steps in their relationship. He knew that their bond had grown strong, but he also understood that marriage would require more than curiosity and admiration. It would require trust, acceptance, and the courage to face the unknown together. He thought about his family, Maya's family, and the villagers, and he realized that he would need to bridge the gap between ordinary expectations and the extraordinary connection they shared. One afternoon, Aaron visited Maya's home to discuss this. Maya greeted him with her usual warm smile and invited him to sit in the garden. They spoke of small things at first, the comfort of routine and the simple joys of life in the village. Then Aaron took a deep breath and said, "Maya, I know we come from different worlds in many ways, but I want to be with you to face whatever comes and to grow with you. Will you consider taking this journey with me fully as partners in life? I am ready to take this journey with you." Their families, after initial hesitation, began to accept the relationship as well. Aaron's parents, who had once worried about the differences in their lives and education, saw the bond that had grown between them and recognized the mutual respect and care they shared. Maya's family, too, acknowledged Aaron's sincerity, patience, and willingness to embrace her unique world. Slowly, the barriers that had once felt insurmountable began to dissolve. As the wedding preparations began, Aaron reflected on how much he had changed. He was no longer the hesitant, uncertain young man who had pointed at a name on a list without thought. He had grown in confidence, curiosity, and understanding. He had learned to appreciate differences, to embrace uncertainty, and to find joy in discovery. And most importantly, he had learned that love, true love, was not just about companionship. It was about shared growth, mutual respect, and the courage to face life's unknowns together. The wedding itself was a beautiful blend of tradition and individuality. The village came together to celebrate, bringing flowers, songs, and laughter. Aaron and Maya stood side by side, surrounded by friends, family, and neighbors, each aware of the journey that had led them to this moment. There was a quiet magic in the air, a sense that something extraordinary had taken place, not through grand gestures or luck, but through choices, curiosity, and the willingness to see life differently. After the ceremony, as the celebrations continued into the evening, Aaron and Maya found a quiet moment together. They walked to the hill overlooking the fields, the same place where they had shared conversations, laughter, and reflections over the past months. The stars were beginning to appear, scattered across the sky like tiny points of light, each one reminding Aaron of the moments he had spent learning, listening, and growing with Maya. "I can't believe how much has changed," Aaron said softly, taking her hand. "Just a few months ago, I didn't even know what to expect, and now everything feels so alive, so full of possibilities. You chose, and that choice brought us here. And now, together, we can continue to explore, learn, and grow." There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, and times when life seemed overwhelming. But with Maya by his side, he felt ready to face them all, confident in the strength of their connection and the shared joy of discovering life together. As the night deepened and the stars shone brightly above, Aaron and Maya sat together in quiet contentment. The world around them, the village, the fields, the distant hills, felt both familiar and new. Aaron understood that life was not about predicting every step or controlling every outcome, but about embracing the journey, learning from experiences, and walking with someone who makes the unknown feel exciting rather than frightening. And in that quiet moment, Aaron realized something profound. Maya was not just a partner, not just a guide to a larger world. She was a reminder that life could be extraordinary when approached with openness, curiosity, and courage. And with her, he had found not only love, but a path to a life that was full of wonder, meaning, and endless possibilities. For Aaron, the journey that had begun with a random choice had transformed into a life of purpose, connection, and discovery. He smiled as he looked at Maya, feeling a sense of completeness he had never known before. The universe, the stars, and the world itself seemed to hum with quiet approval, as if acknowledging the beauty of two lives joined in understanding, respect, and the joy of shared adventure. And in that moment, Aaron knew that randomness had been the first step toward fate, that curiosity had led to growth, and that love, true, transformative love, was a journey best shared with someone extraordinary. With Maya, he was ready for whatever the future held, knowing that together, they could face the unknown and turn it into something beautiful, meaningful, and unforgettable.